Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peej.
And I'm Mac.
Mac, what are we talking about today?
I mean, we're kind of getting into a little bit of Indiana Jones territory here. We're talking about some cursed items.
Okay.
I think we all sort of know different legends and stories. I guess sort of depending around the world and the culture that you're involved in, as far as things you don't want to touch, you don't want to get involved with. We already talked about it a couple weeks ago about the Ouija board. That's cursed, and at least in my opinion, and I think in your opinion. But
Yeah.
this is going to kind of go into another bit of a top five type of situation, and sort of dive into what that might look like from a different perspective.
Right on. Well, I've not seen this video, so my responses will be authentic, folks. Here we go. Oh,
Curses have been around for thousands of years and are often blamed for
Snap.
tragic events, as their sole purpose is to cause harm or even death to those who they have been summoned upon. Nowadays, we often associate them with witches who will cast them to those who do them wrong. But this isn't always the case, as oftentimes people can be cursed by moving or touching objects such as old artifacts, or even taking items from a haunted home. Now, whether you believe in them or not, there have been a number of misfortunes and even fatalities that can be traced back and linked to some kind of curse or action that could have invoked one. Whether it's all just coincidence and speculation, or whether there is some truth behind curses, is up to you to decide. So, from a cauldron used by one of the most infamous serial killers to store and possibly cook human remains in his house, to Europe's oldest mummy that seems to have been responsible for many deaths after it was discovered, here are 5
That
cursed
ain't
and
good.
haunted items from around the world. Hit the lights, sit back, and enjoy. The Cursed Grimoire. What better way to start a cursed items video than talking about a grimoire? A grimoire is the name given to a textbook of magic that provides instructions on how to create talismans as well as perform magical spells and summon supernatural entities such as angels, spirits, and demons. They are very rare, so on a few days before Halloween in 2013, 2 handwritten spiral-bound grimoires came up for sale. They created a lot of interest and were sold for over $13,000. But they
That
came
is
with a warning.
expensive.
On the opening page was this message: "To those not of this craft, the reading of this book is forbidden. Proceed no further, or justice will exact a swift and terrible retribution, and you will surely suffer at the hands of this craft." The
I
same warning
mean,
was
come
written
on.
again using the ancient alphabet called Theban, which is a magical text of unknown origin that is thought to only be understood by true believers of witchcraft. The author of the book had also signed her name using the Theban alphabet. But what's
Meh.
even more interesting is that tradition states that the original witch should have the grimoire burned after their death in order to keep her magic spells and identity a secret. If this really was written by a witch, then for this book to come up for sale was almost unheard of. It turns out it was written by a witch in the 1960s who was a high priestess of Wicca, and the grimoires had
Come on.
somehow been acquired by a
Come on.
lady whose husband worked for
1960s.
occultist Aleister Crowley. The
Oh,
first of the books contained hundreds of years' worth of Wicca knowledge passed down from her mother and other generations of high priestesses, and the second includes recipes, cures, and ceremonial perfumes. Both books, depending on your beliefs of witchcraft, could be very powerful and even dangerous in the wrong hands. So who bought them? Well, it's not known, but the company who acquired them and sold them in the first place said this: "The spell books, or grimoires to give them the correct Wiccan name, are particularly interesting as they are cursed. We have not heard from the buyer since the purchase, and that could be good or bad." To think that someone actually paid over $13,000 and has since not been in contact makes you wonder what exactly they are using the books for. I just want to ask, I've heard a few interesting stories about witchcraft, and wanted to know if any of you believe witchcraft is real, and people can cast spells and such, or do you think it's all make-believe?
I believe it's make believe, but I mean, you never know. I mean, some of the stuff could be based on a very old science. I mean, in alchemy and things that have been proven to be, actually effective. I don't know about the recipes, but I could see that being some ancient knowledge, that could have been passed down, maybe, not done right. And so the reason why someone would say, "Hey, why don't you drink this to solve your diarrhea?" And or you're, you got an upset stomach and then it like kills you, is because maybe some of the knowledge was lost, but maybe it was good at one point and some of it just like it was like 80% correct, but that other 20% like kills you. I mean, I can see something like that happening. And maybe that's kind of what happened. Is a lot of the stuff is like a lot of oral tradition from like witchcraft. I can see that specifically. Is like, yeah, I'm sure this works, and maybe they get the recipe, doesn't kill anybody, but it does kill that person. Then it's like, oh, we gotta hang the witch or burn the witch or the warlock or whatever it happens to be. Is like, they killed this person with their witchcraft. I mean, I think that's much more likely than just some weirdos that just randomly. Like, you can see, like, there's probably a history behind some of this stuff, if that makes any sense.
It does. I mean, witches back then obviously kind of served like pseudo doctors, right? So whatever,
Witch doctors and whatever. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, witch doctors, but whatever ails you, here's a remedy that I concocted by, using a mortar and pestle on these herbs, and here you go. And of course, then kind of like the contrast of that is like, here's an herb that could, make your sister jealous of you or whatever. And some of that could
Yeah.
also be like psychosomatic, right? It's whatever people
Yep.
believe then to be true, because again, they don't have Instagram that could tell them otherwise, right?
And so coincidentally, it could have worked at one point. It was like, oh yeah, this is like some good shit. And
And
then they kept trying. It's
exactly.
like, oh shit, it's not
And
working
then
for
it
me.
becomes and then it becomes lore, and then it becomes kind of like what's accepted to be true. I mean, think about I don't know, like if we for some reason, well, not for some reason, I mean, it could potentially happen, like humanity could devolve, right? And all of a sudden our non-thinking or very slow thinking version from thousands of years from now discover a buried medical book. That could seem like a grimoire, you know,
Yeah,
to them,
absolutely. Yeah, that's
So,
a good point. Yeah.
all
I didn't
right,
even think about
here's yeah, but grimoires, man, magic books. Here's the next one.
shit.
The Curse of Ötzi. In
Oh
1991, the
shit.
frozen body of Ötzi the Iceman was discovered in the Ötztal Alps on the Italian border. He was thought to have died over 5,300 years ago, and this Bronze Age man was a remarkable and exciting find. Not only was he the oldest natural human mummy in Europe, but also gave researchers an insight into Europeans of that time period.
It
But
looks like
following the bizarre circumstances surrounding those who discovered Ötzi, made many believe disturbing him was not a good idea.
Hmm.
One by one,
yeah.
those who discovered and examined his remains were struck with bad luck. Rainer Henn, the forensic pathologist who examined Ötzi, died in a car accident a year later. Kurt Fritz, the guide who led Henn to the body and brushed the snow off of Ötzi to reveal his face, died in an avalanche shortly after. Rainer Holt,
What?
the filmmaker who made a documentary about the recovery of Ötzi, died of a brain tumor. Helmut Simon, who first discovered the body, died from a fall while hiking in 2004, and one of his friends, who was part of the rescue team who found him, died of a heart attack hours after Simon's funeral. Konrad Splinder,
Jesus.
who led the scientific team that recovered and examined Ötzi's body, died of MS, and Tom Loy, a molecule archaeologist who discovered human blood on Ötzi's weapons and clothing, passed away of a blood disease. All of these people
Oh.
died pretty young and were all relatively healthy beforehand. So is it just a coincidence, or is Ötzi's mummy cursed? Well, many believe the curse has done its damage on those who first disturbed the body, as he is currently held in a refrigerated room in a museum in Italy, and attracts over 300,000 visitors a year who have never had any bad experiences linked to their visits. But it's pretty crazy, all of the people who passed away after discovering Ötzi.
Well, as soon as they just discovered him and they were like engaged in like scientific, research upon the guy, right? It wasn't just like they were just visitors to the place. I wouldn't expect Utsi to be that pissed off about that. It's like, yeah, you just, maybe just give me like some boxers,
Yeah.
something like that. I'm kind of embarrassed over here because kind of all strung out. I could see Utsi being pretty pissed. Although that is kind of it's a bit reminder ish of an episode we had not done that long ago talking about the UFO scientists suddenly
Right. Yeah.
dying, right? That one it's a bit more nefarious. In this case, it's more of just like it could be an actual curse. It could be certainly, absolutely. Yeah, it could be. It could be just coincidence, absolutely. But it is weird. Like the guy studying the blood died of a blood disease. Isn't that what I thought I heard there? That was kind of
Yeah,
weird.
one died from a blood disease, one died from MS.
Yeah, just like weird stuff that, it seems completely random from all the people that were involved with him. That's a little, that's one of those things that makes you not want to go anywhere near Utsi. Even looking at him through that, I'm thinking like, I gotta go to the doctor, but it is weird. I'm not gonna deny that.
I would say that certainly the ones who are involved with Utsi that who died from like tragic circumstances, car
Weird random
fall,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. That one right there, I could probably go, okay, curse
Yep.
potentially.
Agreed.
Developing
Agreed.
developing and dying from multiple sclerosis, developing and dying from a blood disease, that can kind of just happen. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? But again, if you're
falling off
looking
of a
for,
trail hiking, that's probably how he died,
yeah,
we're just looking at all these different things that sort of add up to be like, "Hey, you know
yeah,
what? This is like your ultimate your destination is, it's already predetermined."
yeah. I mean, like, but then again, if people were looking for a pattern, oh my God, all these people discovered Utsi or whatever. But I get it. Yeah, you just don't want to mess with mummies.
I agree. I
All right,
agree.
here's the next one.
The cursed mobile number.
Nope.
In 2010, something very unusual took place. Mobitel, a Bulgarian mobile phone provider, withdrew a cell number. The number was 0888 and was suspended after every single person who had been issued with it died unexpectedly, leading the company
Oh
to believe
shit!
it was cursed and would bring bad fortune to those who were given it. In total, 3 people were killed
Don't
who
give
had
it
the phone
out.
number. First was the head of the phone provider, Vladimir Grashnov, who passed away from cancer in 2001 that was suspected to have been caused by radioactive poisoning. He was just 48 years
Okay.
old. Then the number was assigned to Bulgarian mafia boss Konstantin
I
Dimitrov,
mean,
who had built up a 50 million drug smuggling empire. In 2003, he was out dining in Amsterdam when a gunman assassinated him in front of diners. He was just 33 years old at the time and had his phone in his pocket. After
Ooh.
this, the number was assigned
Wow.
to one more person, businessman and drug trafficker Konstantin Dishlyev, and he too was assassinated 2 years later outside of a restaurant with the phone in his pocket. This was the final straw, and the mobile provider kept the number dormant for a while before Mobitel decided it was too risky to issue it again, and withdrew it indefinitely. It's crazy to say that the number was the reasoning for these people's death, but it's the only number in the world that every owner of it had died. And for that reason alone, superstition or not, Mobitel were not taking any chances.
Hmm. Okay, so the only reason why there's a couple ways to look at that. It's like one, the phone that the original guy had, which is given to other people, and then they died because they were holding onto the phone, right? That's like
right.
one, and they kept the number, but it was the phone that was involved. But however, it's just like allegedly 3 for 3. It's like on the phone number by itself, people ended up dying. Now, again, you look at the two of them were like bad criminals, like drug smuggling criminals.
Yeah,
So, yeah, what was the other guy? Was like the owner of the company or the CEO
yeah.
or some shit like that.
The first one was a CEO. The second one was a mafia don.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other one, I don't know what the other one did, but he was also
It
assassinated.
was like it was like drug smuggling in
Oh,
some.
okay.
I think the first guy was like radioactive poisoning in some
Right,
way,
right.
which is weird. So, I mean, the other two aren't weird. However, the fact that they took his number and he got like bad, and he was probably not like on the up and up. I'm just guessing that the
Well,
guy probably wasn't on the up and up. The
the
CEO of
first
that
guy.
corporation. Yeah,
I mean, who knows,
I
right?
have a feeling. I just have a feeling that he looked like he had a mustache that looked like he was not on the up and up. We'll have to look into more of that guy a little bit later. But if you're the head of a company back in those days, and then somehow your number gets to be available to somebody else who are in organized crime, seems weird to me. Like it's like or maybe he was on the up and up and he's punishing other people because of that number. It's
Right.
like, well, I was totally on the up and up, and hey, I died this weird ass way, but enjoy my phone number. And now you're everybody, but they stopped it, right? They stopped
Yeah,
that
they stopped
number. It was 3 for 3,
it.
right? 100% death rate for that number. and they stopped it. That says a lot to me. That's kind of interesting. They stopped the number. If they just let it go, like, you know, 3 or 4 people died over like 100 people who had it. Okay, 3 or 4%. That's going to be expected. The fact that
Right.
he's like, nope, nope, we're stopping this shit now. We're stopping it now.
Well, here's the thing though. Here's the odd part because I was kind of like researching numerology quite a
Ah,
while back. So I just because I remember 888 being kind of like an angel number. Um,
mm,
and it's actually so 888 is a powerful spiritual symbol of abundance, success, and financial reward,
mm,
right?
yeah,
Um,
which
you know,
happened to
because
them, I
it's
guess. Yeah.
yeah, because the eight represents infinity, so it's balance, karmic flow. So
Oh
it's kind of interesting.
shit. Okay.
It's kind of like the opposite happened to these people, mainly because the 888 were repeated 3 times.
Oh, and another number 3 is another kind of number that you kind of have to
Yeah.
watch out for. Damn.
All
All
right.
right. This is one is the most likely one yet because they stopped it.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
me, that's the one to me is like, somebody
Well,
figured it out.
Movitel stopped it. Who knows if AT&T and Verizon or whoever has that number still,
That's true. That's
in
true.
some form. All right, here's the next one.
Thomas Busby's chair. The Busby Stoop Inn, located in North Yorkshire, England, has long had a reputation as being one of the most haunted places in the area. More
Mm.
specifically,
Nice.
being the home to a haunted and said to be cursed chair. Let's go back over 300 years ago, when the pub was home to a heavy drinking petty criminal called Thomas Busby. It was well known that Thomas had a favourite chair in the pub and would shout at anyone who dared to sit in it.
Oh boy.
Well, in 1702, he had an argument with his father-in-law, Daniel Orty, who was his partner in crime, and Daniel taunted Busby by sitting in his favourite chair. Thomas ordered
Ooh,
him to leave the pub and followed him back to his farmhouse, where he bludgeoned him to death with a hammer, before hiding his
it
body
seems
in the nearby
extreme.
woods. It wasn't long before he was arrested and sentenced to death by hanging. However, as he was being led to the gallows, he cursed at onlookers, warning them that if they ever sat in his chair, they would die a horrible death. He was then
I love
hanged on a
that guy.
makeshift gallows just across the road from the pub, and his body was left on display for several days.
Oh my
Since
God.
then, there
Not a
have been
good
a number of
idea.
deaths that are believed to be associated with the chair. The first was a chimney sweep who sat on it during his break and just a few minutes after returning to work fell to his death from the roof of the pub. Then, most
Hmm.
notably, a group of World War II Air Force officers who took turns to sit in the chair did not return home from the war, and many blamed their taunting of Thomas by sitting in his chair as the cause. Then in 1967, 2 RAF pilots stopped by the pub and were dared by locals to sit in the chair. As they travelled home that evening, they lost control of their car, hit a tree, and were both killed. Other
Jesus.
reported deaths were a cleaning lady who tripped on her mop and landed in the chair, that later died of a brain tumour, and a delivery man
What?
who also sat in the chair and crashed his van later that day. The landlord decided enough was enough and moved the chair into the basement, where it remained for several years, until a builder was called in to do some work and sat there during his
Oh
break.
no,
Later that day, he
no.
apparently fell to his death.
Oh my God.
This was the final straw. The landlord contacted a
The
local
final
museum in
straw.
England and asked them if they would take the chair. They agreed, and it was put on public display, where it hangs 6 feet off the floor, just in case someone is
Okay,
tempted to sit in it. So is it all just a
that's fair.
coincidence, or exaggerated tales that have been passed down over the years? Or is Thomas Busby a man of his word?
I
Jeez.
mean, it could be both things can be true, right?
Yeah.
It could be a cursed chair and it could be a bit exaggerated, but I feel like, some of these stories again of these cursed items, there's a lot of like random shit that happens. Okay, it could just be stories. It could just be nonsense. But I know if he says don't sit in my fucking chair, he's being executed. It's like, and he's always been like the way, that type of a story leads me to, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm not going to do Ouija boards. I'm not going to do anything that leads me to do anything cursed because people are telling me don't do it. Like, at some point, you just have, I'm not going to do bungee jumping. I'm
Right.
not going to jump out of a plane and
Guy died.
do parachutes. It's just tempting fate of something that I don't really want to mess with. I'm not interested in
Yeah.
doing
I
that.
mean, I know we
I'm
still have one
good.
more. I know we still have one more cursed object to talk about. But again, this is why. First of all, I get freaked out at like antique stores.
Oh, I don't like
Yes.
that at all.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm-mm.
You can't drag me into one. I mean, and even like honestly, there's like a store on Mississippi. I think it's called Rejuvenation or something like that. Where again, it's all like old stuff. So, weirdly enough, I am okay with like the city liquidators for some reason. Because some of some of those are fairly old. But the point is, you and I did, or I don't know if you were involved in it, but you and I did, or what, Pops, Portland, Oregon Paranormal Society when
Yeah,
it was
yeah, yeah.
around, did a call in Beaverton area of uh a crib that was bought secondhand. Do you
Oh,
remember this at all?
yeah,
You
yeah,
there?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And how it apparently had something attached to it. Anyway, so yeah, secondhand stuff, garage sales, antique stores. Just be careful. Just be
I
careful.
mean, it even goes into like remodeled homes. I
Yeah.
mean, like yeah, old homes, like homes where things have happened. Like the place I live, I think it's like 2014, 2015 is the age of where it lives, as far as I know, and as far as I can sort of tell, nothing has ever happened here, which is good. And
Yeah.
it's been no remodeling. The last several places I've lived, I really haven't to worry about that. But you just have to wonder. And usually it's recent, to when it's doing remodeled. There's plenty of stories like that. And again, if you get this dude here is clearly said, "Don't sit in my chair," and yet
Well,
people keep tempting fate.
and he was hung outside of the pub. A, B, the pub's sign have two nooses at the end of the sign itself. So,
It's
I
bad
mean,
news.
they're kind of like glorifying it, so to speak, because they're trying to, get, I don't know, make sure that they're famous for this guy. Well, they're still
Yeah.
famous.
He's famous. I mean, and he's famous to an extent, which could continue to live on in that chair in infamy.
All right, here's the last one.
Ed Gein's Cauldron. The
Hmm.
name Ed Gein
Oh,
is
this is
known
the
by
one I talked about
most.
at the
He was an
beginning.
American
Okay.
serial killer and body snatcher who lived in Wisconsin and was convicted of murdering two women and exhuming countless bodies from the local graveyards, which he would go on
Mm.
to use for many disturbing things in his house. Speaking of his house, it was an eerie place just outside of Plainfield, and when police broke in 1957, suspecting Gein was responsible for the disappearance of local shop owner Bernice Warden, the local community could not believe what Gein had been up to in there. Inside were items made from human skin and body parts, such as lampshades, chairs, and even jewelry.
Oh my
Ah,
gosh.
Gein was
shit, that
eventually
ain't good.
convicted for his crimes, considered legally insane, and spent the rest of his life in a psychiatric institution where he died in 1984. But going back to when he was first arrested, his house was burnt down shortly after, with most of the possessions being lost, sold, or destroyed by police. One such item that was sold was a cauldron that was later acquired by a local man called Dan McIntyre, whose grandmother
He's
had
an idiot.
purchased it from the sale of Gein's belongings many years ago and used it as a plant pot. It was some
Nope.
years after he acquired it that a neighbour of McIntyre noticed it in his garage and immediately recognised it as the blood-encrusted cauldron that he had seen when assisting police with the cleanup of Gein's house back in 1957. At the time, the cauldron was nestled between tubs and barrels and also rotting remains. After finding
Nestled.
out it was most likely used by Gein to store or possibly even cook human organs, although it's not known if Ed ate any of the victims or bodies he dug up, McIntyre decided to sell it, thinking it would be great for a collector of such items. However, after removing it from the garage, he began to feel uneasy and described feeling dizzy and anxious. Then, shortly after, he suffered from a mysterious illness and electrical items in his house started to malfunction,
Mm.
along with other bizarre happenings that he linked to the day he moved Ed Gein's cauldron. McIntyre became convinced it had dark energy, and by moving it, he released what had been lying dormant for many years. He believed the cauldron represented the evil that happened all those years ago, and all of the horror that happened inside Ed's home. The cauldron went to auction in February 2015 and was sold for an undisclosed figure to Ghost Adventures investigator and
Oh
haunted
God.
collector Zach Bagans.
I hope he's definitely
Playing it in the
cursed.
Macabre Museum in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know. That one is the least. I mean, it on its face seems like the most believable. But I mean, we didn't hear of any actual stories or anything happening. It was just all hearsay. And then
Yeah.
they mentioned that asshole, and then yeah, it's just a cauldron that happened to be in there. Probably nothing happened. They said blood encrusted, and I don't think there was any blood in that thing.
Well, thank God. Well, thank goodness the guy who bought it at first didn't die. He just felt uneasy, anxious, etc. But then like maybe experienced it multiple times and ended up getting rid of it. But then it got sold in the auction. And yes, to your point, it was bought apparently by Zach Bagans from the TV show Ghost Adventures.
Such a
Uh,
douche.
any day now.
Yeah, well, that's true. You never know. Maybe he's gonna like, I'm gonna put some beer in this thing. I'm gonna show people. I'm gonna show people what I got. Yeah, a little bit of ice and beer at a Super Bowl party. Suddenly, everyone's dead.
Oh boy. Folks, do you believe in cursed objects? I kind of do. Like I said,
I
I'm
do. Yeah.
out about like old stuff that even like honestly like past, like hand-me-downs or whatever, family heirlooms. Yeah, I don't, especially if it's from somebody who didn't quite live an angelic life, but
Yeah, and there could be the opposite as well. I mean, it could be not necessarily cursed, but like there's um, been saturated with maybe a spirit of who has been there before. It could be a positive spirit. It could be a positive type
eh,
item. There's been items that have been looked at as that, well, like an omen, or not good omens, but talismans and
yeah.
things of that nature, right? So it could be the opposite. I think in the case of most of these stories here, and some of them are pretty compelling. I would say cursed and haunted, or haunted, is certainly a very viable explanation.
Well, make sure it's not a Ouija board either, because those are definitely coming in cursed. Thank you very
Mm.
much, Milton Bradley. All right, folks, if you enjoy this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe. And on YouTube, hit that notification bell to make sure you don't miss out on future episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.